Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to the ASTROLABE, brought to you by King Pilled. I'm your host and humble narrator and commentator, as a good friend Buck Johnson would say, the host and humble narrator of Counterflow Podcast, Buck Johnson, who is back on Twitter. It turns out, I don't know, it was a mistake, something. He is back and tweeting, which is a great thing. Twitter is better when Buck is a part of it. So shout out to whoever made that happen. I'll say keep Buck in your prayers, because him getting deleted from Twitter may have been an isolated incident. It may not be. There may be some other issues he's going to have to deal with in his personal life related to the things he talks about online and people who don't want them to don't want him to talk about such things. I'll leave it at that for now. He can. I don't know if he's talked about it publicly or not, but just keep in your prayers. Every man always needs prayer, and Buck could use a little extra right now. What's up, Cable in the chat? He says this is Inception of ASTROLABE. Just paused a past episode to watch the live one. We're getting you. We've got you hooked. You are sucked in. Our teeth are sunk into you. Well, today. Once again, I thought that I was going to have not a tremendous amount to talk about, and here it turns out that I'm going to have a lot of it to talk about. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 tabs from Twitter, and then 1, 2, 3 other tabs as well. So right now we're dog sitting for our landlord. He brought his little, it's actually his wife's little Yorkie down, and he's very sweet. His name is Chester. Amy posted a video of him and our normal dog Pete in the King Pill Discord, kingpill.com, if you want to sign up. But the two of them are quite adorable, and Chester is a very, very sweet dog. Our cat is not a fan whatsoever. Every single time he comes up, she's sitting up on the banister and hissing and growling at him. You ever heard a cat growl? It's kind of crazy. But she is ready to absolutely kick his ass if he gets anywhere close to her. So he makes this big loop all the way around through the far side of the loft and keeps as far away from her as he can. So I was going to be Amy had to go pick up another little dog that we're going to be dog sitting, who's also a Yorkie or a Corgi or some little ankle biter, or a knot dog, as my good friend Patrick used to say. So Chester started barking, so I ran down and brought him in here because Amy had run to go pick up the other dog, and then he and the cat almost had a little kerfuffle there because she wasn't safely perched up on the banister when we came by, and she was caught between fighting and fleeing. And now so I brought him in here, and then Amy got back home, so I had to go let him out. So that's why I started out a little bit late. But it is Thursday. It's good to see you guys in the chat. Everyone's popping. Nephilim is in the chat. Mr. Westford, Glonk, what's up, Glonk? And Wit WT, how you doing, man? He says navigating Floodwater soundtrack. What's his what's the story? How are things going over there? You got to keep us posted. Let us know if you need anything. So what do we got here? So first, speaking of cats growling or yowling, I got a couple funny videos to start off with, and this one I was cracking up. See, I've always been a cat guy. I've always found cats very aristocratic, and I grew up with them. My grandma had a bazillion cats, and my uncle had a really fat cat named Spencer that would just like lay on his waterbed and just hang out. He was really funny, and so I've always had cats. I've always been a cat guy. And then around in my 20s, shortly before I got my dog, I got really, really into dogs, and it was sort of like I had to make up for lost time. And now I've just kind of settled into I'm a radical centrist. I've settled into the happy medium of I really like cats. I really like dogs. I like having both of them around. And but cats are just, I don't know, something about them just cracks me up. Like dogs are kind of dopey and goofy, and cats are just like little balls of pent up energy ready to explode on something at all times. And so I saw this video yesterday, and I was just laughing my ass off at it. This cat is, in a very weird way, being very uncat-like while also being incredibly cat-like. Name one video that lives rent-free in your head. This cat wants nothing to do with fighting for this rat. So when do you see a cat that will not go after a rat? Something's broken in this cat. It reminds me, there's a video or a channel on, I see the videos reposted all over the place. I think it's like TikTok or Instagram is the original posting place. But there's a guy who has a little rat terrier. I can't remember his name. Maybe someone in the chat will get me here. There's a little rat terrier that is he's actually an expert at doing what he's been bred to do, and he's being allowed to do it. I don't know if this is just like an entertainment thing or if the guy actually has like contracts with the city to go after rats, but it's just videos of him sitting there with his dog, holding him, and then saying, "Go get it." And the dog is like, rats are fucked when this dog is around. He is absolute savage. Hopefully someone in the chat remembers his name, because it's very entertaining to watch. It's very primal. So this is the first little funny video. Let's get to the second one. This is something else. This is funny in a different way. So just leave Joey alone, you monsters. I don't know if any of you guys saw this video going around yesterday. It was going pretty viral. But this just absolutely epitomizes the lib mind. This epitomizes the devouring mother, the spirit behind the environmentalists. There's a lot of passion and energy, but not very. They're a little short on the brains. Check this out.
It turns out unlucky bears really do exist. This one is named Joey. Due to albinism, his fur is completely white. He was mistaken for a lost polar bear by an animal protection organization who tranquilized him and sent him to the Arctic. In the icy wilderness, Joey couldn't find food and, being smaller than the polar bears, was chased and bullied by them. Arctic experts noticed his fur was yellowish and different from polar bears, and upon observation, they discovered he was an albino grizzly bear. They tranquilized him again and sent him back to the North American forest. After some time, Joey was once again mistaken for a polar
this
bear
poor
by
bastard.
another animal protection organization and was sent back near the Arctic Circle. This time, with experience, Joey started running toward warmer areas. However, passers-by saw him and thought he was a polar bear heading south in search of food. So they sent Joey to a nearby polar bear exhibit. The staff there recognized him as an albino grizzly and sent him back to the North American forest. This bear is truly unluckier than the unluckiest bear you can imagine.
Oh, poor Joey, man. The bear has so many sky miles. Oh, this poor guy. He's like, I'm just out here trying to live, man, and these stupid libs keep picking me up and carrying me around the country. Drop him in the Arctic. The polar bears are like, hey, fuck you. You don't belong here. He's running for his life from a bunch of polar bears. He's used to being the apex predator, and now he's here with an even bigger apex predator going after him. They take it back, and he's like, nope, I'm not doing this again. He pieces out. I wonder if it's going to happen again. Imagine he gets scooped up and taken back to the Arctic Circle again. Wait, I'm not a polar bear. I have a skin condition. I was telling Cooper about this on the phone earlier this morning, and he said it'd be really funny to do this as a skit with guys, like get like an albino black guy and relocate him to like northern Alabama somewhere or something, and put him in an all white town, and he's getting bullied, and it would make a funny bit. Apparently, the other dog is not happy about being here. He's peed on the floor twice now. This is going to be a fun next couple of weeks. Okay. So there's our animal fix for the day. I was gonna share something else. I think I might have clicked away from the thread already. So if you guys watched yesterday's show, you saw the conversation about the moon landing, and I played you the video of this new movie coming out, Fly Me to the Moon, talking about the moon landing. And hold on, let me find the tweet again. It's doing numbers. I'll share the screen. Oh, Wit says, getting hard to get around, dozens of bridge failures, currently taking a 40-mile detour, cleaning out my aunt's basement today in case it all crumbles this week. Good grief, man. That's brutal. That sounds, I mean, dozens of bridge failures. That is a lot of infrastructure down. At least we're a culture of strong men, indeed. If there was anywhere in the country that I could trust to dig themselves out of a pickle like this, it would be the Midwest. Strong country boys. This is apparently this is what white boy summer is going to be in the Midwest, is rebuilding their infrastructure, which, hey, might not be a bad thing. Maybe this is an opportunity to do it all right and get a jump start on the future. Philo's Miscellany says, hey, King Pill, just got baptized in the OCA on Saturday with my fiance. Background was Jewish and Catholic. Glory to God. Glory to God, man. That is great to hear. You and your fiance together. That's got to be a good story. Glad to hear about that, man. What's up, Meliforda? Good to see you. Taylor Brown, I need a rendition of Joey's story in the style of Cocaine Bear. Yes. Oh, that would be good. All right, so here let's take a look at this tweet. So this tweet now, I gotta say a big shout out to the haters and losers, because this tweet is moving up on the record for my most impressions ever from a single tweet, and it's almost entirely because of hate. I figured out the thing that will turn the Wignats into screeching boomers, and that is the moon landing. So apparently, me sharing this video here, my comments on it were amazing. All is being revealed much faster than I ever anticipated. The crowning achievement of the boomer truth regime is going down. The American Republic is dying, but not because America is dying, because the American Empire is coming online. So these masters of thought, these absolute wizards, have concluded from this that what I'm saying is, because Hollywood is releasing this movie, that proves that the moon landing was fake. And that's not at all what I'm saying. What I talked about on the show yesterday, so I don't need to reboot all my thoughts on it, but I'm confident that the story of the moon landing. So there's two different things here. There's like the actual project of going to the moon and landing on the moon and navigating there, navigating back, all the things associated with that. We got a word concept fallacy thing going on here, where we've got a mouth sound and we got a mind picture, and these things are being conflated. So when you say moon landing can refer to the process of going to and landing on the moon and coming back from the moon. It can also refer to the story that is told, the mythology of that process. My position, as I've established, is that the mythology is very obviously fake. That leaves the other to an open debate. I am TBD on that. I don't have a position. What I do suspect is that whatever the actual truth is far more fantastic than the story that we've been told. This goofy little child story that was produced. And it baffles me that people can hold an opinion of the regime as it has existed for the last 80 plus years, and the various different forces that have infiltrated it, and the aspects of it that they've infiltrated. They can hold this thought in their head, but then they can take this other thing, which is like the defining accomplishment, the defining narrative, the thing that has stood up as like the archetype of what we today call the boomer truth regime, the naive boomer idealism. The absolute archetype of that is the story of the moon landing and everything associated with it. And so to question that in the minds of these absolute wizards, to question that is to deny the white man his greatest accomplishment. Now let's think about this for a second. On one hand, we have the story of going to the moon, and then like we forgot how, we can't do it again, and oh well. There's that story, which is ostensibly supposed to be the white man's greatest accomplishment. And then on the flip side, there's this hypothetical alternative narrative where the accomplishment was not simply going to the moon. The accomplishment was going to the moon and also fabricating a story about it that was like the best propaganda campaign in all of history. The most sophisticated propaganda campaign in all of history. The fact that all of the actual the story itself is so flimsy and falls apart under a little bit of scrutiny. Like, that makes the propaganda job even more incredible. Yeah, the thinking caps. This is the thinking caps. Let me see if I could find that other, this one here. This meme. Literal warrior saints. If you're a Christian, you must be a complete pacifist, actually. And he's got his thinking cap on. I was dying at this. Thinking cap in his face, it's just absolutely perfect. That's these guys. And what's fascinating is the syntax of their responses. I'm not going to highlight any of them because I don't want to give them that privilege. The syntax of their responses is exactly identical to the syntax of a lib if you suggest that Trump didn't say that the people in Charlottesville were the white nationalists are very fine people or whatever. Or if you suggest that perhaps COVID was not just an organic happening. The particular hypothesis that I'm not going to say, but it's two words that start with L. If you bring that up, you trigger the exact same .exe response from the shitlibs. And all of the syntax, the emotion, the really ignorant smugness, them they're like fist fighting with their own shadow. Like attributing to me things that I have never said and don't believe at all. Which obviously they're just like, they have an archetype built in their mind, just like kind of like a one-size-fits-all thing that they just plop over. Whenever the certain subject comes up, it triggers this instant gut response. So they just automatically characterize me into this box that doesn't remotely fit me. Which is it's eerie to see. It's eerie to see this this mind virus and to see the way that it expands. It's like a methodology that can manifest in a bunch of different domains, but the methodology is the same, and it's very unique. It's very distinct. The thinking caps. I'm gonna be using that from now on. We got the thinking caps. We got the deviated septums. I told one of the guys that he needs to learn how to breathe through his nose, because it's just what did I say? What was my other? I said the delightful irony about all the dudes spurging out about this tweet. You're denigrating the white man's accomplishments, you pinko. Is that my actual supposition is that their sacred moon landing myth is itself the cover-up and denigration of the actual accomplishments. Because from everything that I've seen, from what I understand about the development of military technology and black programs and the way these have been going on since forever, everything associated with with Admiral Byrd and Antarctica, what they discovered down there, associations with the occult Nazi technologies and all those sorts of things all together, it's very evident that whatever the moon is, see this is it's still an open question to me what the moon actually is. Once you understand like the absolute roots of these propaganda campaigns and the sorts of things that they're orchestrating these campaigns to cover up, which completely justifies the campaigns, that makes them completely understandable. Like all of these things hint at technological accomplishments vastly beyond simply like going up to the moon and having your little rinkety-dinky tin can thing that goes down. And like that story is far more impressive and incredible and far more interesting. There's so much more to it. But if you didn't believe that America's greatest days are ahead of it, you would think that you need to hang on to something like this and that this sacred narrative cannot be questioned. That questioning that sacred narrative makes you an outsider. This is the boomer truth regime. This is like the defining characteristic of the boomer truth regime. I happen to believe that America's greatest days are ahead of it. As we discover what's actually been happening behind closed doors. What all the secret programs and everything are about. Anyways. So that was a side note that I thought of bringing up this morning. Real quick, let's see some of these chats. Cable says, is it bad that I'll take positions like this as if I fully buy it just to watch people spurg uncontrollably? Oh, yeah. That's what's fantastic, is if you could trigger this sort of response in someone, it's like they're like a marionette. You could condition every single one of their responses. You know exactly what they're going to be. And you can just play with them, like a cat toy. You just flip it out there and you mess around with the cat for a little while. And then, which is funny because within a lot of these guys, it's like, oh, real men don't like cats. I'm real guy. I like dog. I like dog because I Chad. But they're cats spiritually. They have this sort of like high-strung, feminine, pent-up tension. And you just drop a little fluffy thing in front of them and they spurg the fuck out. It's very entertaining. Tyler James says, if you think technology peaked in the 1970s, you might as well go find your nearest boomer and hawk two on that thing. That's a banger. You need to tweet that, Tyler. You need to tweet that. DM it to me and I'll retweet it. Cable says, this is why it's funny, because watching someone fist fighting their own shadow sounds like the funniest shit to watch. Human version of a dog chasing its tail. Yeah. And this defines all of science for like the last 100 years, like the official science, the accepted mainstream science. For like 100 years, science has just been like in a cul-de-sac, just going around and round in circles, chasing its own tail. I mentioned this video to you guys yesterday, and I'll highlight it again. I was able to get a little bit further through it. It's going to be one that I'm going to have to watch multiple times just to be able to really actually grasp what he's saying. But this one here from Formscapes. Noetic ether theory, the morphogenetics of matter. I'll show it to you. If you guys want your minds blown, go watch this. Noetic ether theory, the morphogenetics of matter. Mainstream science doesn't even know what matter is. Their model of what matter is completely broken. All of physics has gone just like veering off into this like loop-de-loop. They're just going round and round and round and round in circles. And we're on the cusp of them getting pulled back out of that and like picking up the thread that people were chasing down up to 100 years ago. In figuring out like we have our description of gravity, like, oh, thing fall down. We have all of our mathematical formulas. This is the like the Western conceit. It's like everything has been abstracted away into some formula. And then all the stuff is done in formulas. And when we get a real life, we actually do a real life test of something, and it doesn't bear out anything close to the results that were predicted, then we just do, 90%, it's 90% off, so 90% of the universe is dark matter. It's we don't know what it is. It has these characteristics, but we don't know what it is. This is what like all of physics is doing now. It's all just descriptive. These things have these characteristics. Well, why? What are they? Well, they do these things. Okay, yeah. Thing fall down. That's what gravity is. Okay, so like why? We have our established narrative of why, but it doesn't actually explain why. It invokes a bunch of different fallacies to provide essentially just a more complicated description, but not an explanation. And then things like electromagnetism just there's no explanation of them. They're just like, yeah, that's a thing. And then the attempted explanations are easily debunked, but when they're debunked, then you bring out the spirit of the boomer truth regime. And it's immediately a slandering, you're associated with this guy who everyone agrees is a whack job, or this guy who everyone agrees is crazy, or it's kind of like science is just, oh yeah, the stuff is there, but there's nothing behind it. Questioning the idea that there might be something behind it, beyond just the directly observable material mechanical consequences of those things behind it, leads us into sketchy territory where science does not want to be. So, yes, Josh Ham says, I'm feeling pretty successful since I've started sending Matt stuff on Twitter. Some of it has shown up on here, hoping to see another validation trophy today. Yeah. I think the last 3 or 4 things that you've sent me are all either I'm going to talk about them or I have talked about them. Yeah, I think I can't remember the ones you sent this morning, but I'm pretty sure at least 1 or 2 of them are in here. All right, so let's move this bad boy forward. It's already 11. All right, so we've got this debate coming up. And, whoops, wrong tab. Let's start with this one. This debate happening today between Trump and Biden, which is interesting. I'm glad it's happening. It's going to be very entertaining. I probably won't be able to watch it live, but I'll wait for people to bring out the highlights and maybe I'll go watch the whole thing later. But Everyone's got a strong opinion about whether Trump should or shouldn't be doing this, and who's going to trap who, and everyone's playing 4D chess on every side. And I'm just like, I just want to see it happen. I just want things to be interesting. So CNN does this breathless explainer of their new debate technology. Guess what they have? They're going to mute one person when the other person is talking, and he's going to get a little light on his desk that tells him he's muted. And watch what happens when someone gets muted.
If you go behind the podiums, you can see 2 green lights.
Ooh.
When they're on, they signal to the candidate his microphone is on. When the green lights are off, they signal to the candidate his microphone is off. Now I want to give you a sense of what it will look like for viewers at home if a candidate whose microphone is off interrupts a candidate whose microphone is on. So I'm standing at one podium, and I'll ask Phil to come in.
This is groundbreaking stuff, you guys. All right, so what he's going to do, he has a microphone, and the microphone has a light attached to it that tells you when it's working and when it's not. So when the mic is off, there's no light. But then when the microphone's back on and you can talk into it and it works, then there's a green light. But now I'm sure you're wondering, well, what would happen if someone tried to talk when their microphone was muted? I wonder what would happen. There's got to be some crazy, like they've figured this out. They've got a crazy trick that they're going to do. Watch.
And then take the other podium. And so let's say I'm answering a question. My light is green and I'm speaking. Phil's microphone is off and his green lights are not illuminated. He's going to interrupt me as I'm speaking. And
the best thing about all of this is he has a teleprompter. He's reading this off of a teleprompter. He's describing this super complex process of there's a light that tells you when your microphone is live. And he's reading the whole explanation off of a teleprompter.
this is what it will sound like. My volume remains constant, while Phil's interruption can be difficult to understand.
Now, let's try the opposite.
Wow. How sophisticated. So if he talks when his microphone is off, you can't hear him. Wow. That's incredible.
Phone is now on. Victor's microphone is off.
But it's got to be different. So if white guy is talking and the black guy starts talking when he's muted, there's got to be something different, right? We need to figure out what happens then.
Going to interrupt me. My volume remains constant, while Victor's interruption can be difficult to understand. CNN's production team has shared this demonstration with the campaigns earlier.
Wow. The production team shared this with the Can you imagine what it was like to be part of one of the campaigns when CNN brought over this crucial explanation? I wonder if they put it in a slideshow for him and said, hey, just FYI, watch what happens. See, this is how it's going to work. There's a light, and the light is green. Green light, go. So when it's green, you get to go. Imagine how the campaigns must have received this. They were so grateful. Oh my God, thank you guys. Thank you for letting me know how a microphone works.
Earlier today, and we're sharing it with you, our viewers, so everyone fully understands how tomorrow night will work. Now, we should note, by agreeing to participate in this debate, both campaigns and candidates have also agreed to abide by these rules. The CNN presidential debate airs live tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern.
Abide by these rules? What rule? There's no rule. They have a light attached to a microphone that signifies when the microphone is on. Like, they've agreed to abide by these. What does that even mean? They're like, hey, this is how the microphones are going to work. And they've agreed to abide by this thing that they're not going to control. This is so silly. And these people take themselves seriously. They know exactly what their audience is. Their audience is people who would sit there and watch this and go, wow, it's so sophisticated. Mr. Westford says, this demonstration is convincing that we must have the technology to go back to the moon. Oh, yes. Now, what I'm hoping for a little something like this. This is how I hope the debate goes today.
Well, if I am Jack, then you are Wojak, the mostest soy Wojak possibly in the world.
Listen, you are the soy Wojak. I am the Chad Wojak.
No, you are the soy Jojak, and I am the Chad Gamer Wojak. You know who you are? You are the 80-year-old unfit ruler. That's who you are.
You know you're not the Chad Wojak. I am the Nordic gamer, Chad, the Giga Chad Wojak.
You're the virgin, and I'm the Chad.
I'm actually not a virgin. Your mom can attest to that.
Well, look, all I'm saying is that we're in two separate leagues. You are the globalism fan, and I am the patriotism enjoyer.
I'm a patriotic globalist. I support slavery worldwide. A better analogy would be that I'm the rare Pepe and you're the small crying people.
You're Apustaya. You're a small crying Apustaya. I am the based and red-pilled Groiper.
That is not true.
It is true.
No, you're not based. You are actually cringe.
No, I am based and red-pilled. Well, if I am Jack, then you.
You know what's incredible is that we have these fantastic technologies where you can duplicate a guy's voice and have him say stuff that clearly he never said, and you basically can't tell. Sounds exactly like it. And honestly, the tech is almost to the point where I think this is a little, this video might be a little older. It might have been from 2020. I don't remember, but this, the tech is almost to the point now where they could have actually made this, like, filmed it as like a live debate. And it would have been a little difficult to tell that it's not actually the guys talking. We're probably, I don't know, 6 months away from that being the case commercially. I wanted to see what the 80-year-old unfit ruler praises free trade in public, votes against it in private, thinks he is on the right side of history, can't even find the region he is sanctioning on the map. You haven't seen my most severe sanctions yet. Has George Soros on speed dial. That'll show those freedom haters. Hasn't had an independent thought since 1982. Your country is starving? Here, have some sanctions until you do what we want. Received $10 million last year in speaking fees about corruption. I'm sanctioning. The internet is amazing. We have such legitimately sophisticated technology, and this is what we use it for. Here's another one. I think I've played this one on here before, but it's absolutely worth watching again. And I'm sure someone in here might think they or might have not seen it.
Look, I understand what you're saying, but you're not listening to me. This is plywood. You can't return it after you've cut it. It's policy. Everyone agrees, don't they? They say, sir, it's the best policy. We've received no complaints, actually, about our policies. Absolutely no complaints. People come here, they buy the plywood, they cut it, and they love it. They say, this is the best plywood we've ever used. It's true, believe me. I've been dealing with plywood my whole life. I know plywood.
But it splintered when I cut it. You're telling me I can't
Splintered? Impossible. It doesn't splinter. You're probably doing something wrong. Me? If it was me, it would never splinter. It's never splintered when I've used it, actually. It wouldn't splinter if I wanted it to, and you're trying to tell me it's splintered? Well, I probably cut this same thing 1,000 times, and they all come to me, they say, Donald, how do you cut it so perfectly? And you know what I say? Look, I understand.
It's remarkable. It's absolutely remarkable that the voice tech is where it is. Taylor says, why do they think this helps them? Trump interrupting Biden in 2020 was perceived as a major asshole move. This feels like a, quote, brilliant idea that will have the exact opposite effect. I don't know. This is part of why it's very interesting to me, because I don't really think that either side is 4D chessing this. I think they may be trying to. And I think both of them in their own way are getting good jabs in on the other one. Because part of what, like Trump interrupting was a turnoff to people, but the people who were turned off by Trump interrupting, I think, were just coming up with a reason and they would just find another one. Because at the same time, with Trump interrupting, you also get the, she would be in jail, or you would be in jail type quotes, which are nukes from outer space. Those are the sorts of things that even if a person on the surface feels like, oh, well, that wasn't very respectable, there's something that happens in the depths of their soul where they're like, this is a man of strength and vitality. This is a man with sharp wit, someone who automatically seems more competent. So this is what's very interesting to me. I know Trump gave his explanation of what their rationale was. They were like, well, they don't want to do the debate, which I think is true. I think they don't want to do a debate, but they also know that it'd be really bad if they don't do a debate. So they feel like they need to, Biden's side feels like Biden needs to debate. I saw someone who pointed out, like, Biden went to Camp David or something and is not making any appearances for a week before. They said the reason why this is happening is because basically they're adjusting his sleep cycle to target in his most alert time of the day, so that when they send him out there, they pump him full of drugs, then he'll be the most alert that he is at whatever point throughout the day. Seems plausible to me, which also is kind of like, if they've got this really sophisticated double fake technology, which I know they have like a body double wearing a mask and super realistic and everything. I saw a video of a CIA disguise chief or something like that who was talking about this. So that if they have this sort of technology, then why would they need to do this? Like they're actually going to send the real guy himself out there. I don't know. I think we don't necessarily need to have a direct answer to all of these things. We don't need to know the super secret plot that's going on behind the scenes. We could just kind of sit and enjoy the show. And that's my posture toward it. So they don't want to do the debate, but they know they have to. So they make Trump an offer that they're like, there's no way he's actually going to accept this. So if someone makes you an offer, you know someone doesn't want to make you an offer. So you know that they're going to make you an offer that they think you're not going to accept. The power move is to accept it. So I know Trump has some very clever people on his side who are going to be conditioning him for what to expect and how to respond to it. So there's some, I think there's viable stories on both sides. I think both of them are trying to get a leg up on the other. And I think Trump being muted is just as likely to hurt him as it is to help him. I think it probably winds up coming out as they sort of net out, and it's just the actual events that happen are really what's going to determine it. Vorpal Anvil says, regarding the Idaho water situation from the other day, it looks like it involves massive cobalt and lithium mines with the usual connections. Yes, it does. I've got that one. I have a couple other stories I want to do that one with, so I put that to the side. And I need to find a different resource because it would involve playing some clips that I'm pretty sure will get taken down. So, but yeah, that is definitely what's happening. Vorpal Anvil says, a few people predicted Biden would take the week off before the debate for just this reason, and here we are. Yeah, right. So an example of one of the benefits of Trump being able to interrupt is you get moments like this. I know every one of you has seen this, but it will do us good to watch it again.
Mr. Trump, one of the things people love about you is you speak your mind and you don't use a politician's filter. However, that is not without its downsides.
Look how young he looks. He's definitely gotten older. I mean, it's been 8 years, but he definitely looks a lot younger. His hair seems to be better now than it was then, though.
In particular, when it comes to women. You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account...
Only Rosie O'Donnell.
No, it wasn't.
Oh, look at the crowd out here. You got these guys down here who are cracking up, laughing. Young boys enjoying themselves. Old guys like, yeah, he got her. Chick over here is like, oh my God, I can't believe he said that. But she's laughing. Like, yeah, it's funny. This chick looks really uncomfortable. This guy's like, the decorum of our institutions. These people are staring up at the screen. And you can see in Megan's face, like, I think this is probably the moment that she turned. This is the moment where she, like, you know, the thing where there's different memes and videos of a guy doing something to a woman that is, I think the best one is one of these like dating shows or something, and the girl's supposed to ask all the guys different questions. And she asks this one guy in the front, like, what would you do in such and such a situation? And he's like, I would gaslight you and emotionally manipulate you, and I would hold you at arm's length and give you the cold shoulder, and then be really rude and cruel to you. But then I would slowly start backing it off and make you feel like you're earning your way back into my graces. And she's like horrified and shocked. And then fast forward to the end of the thing, and they ask her, which of these guys which contestant would you like to take on a date? And she picks him. I think there's a similar thing happening here too. You could see something about the expression on her face where she's, number one, she's probably like, I just got, like, from a journalist perspective, I just got the clip of a lifetime. And number two, she's like, that was freaking funny. Watch her face. Little smirk.
Thank you.
So that's part of like having him muted does take away from those opportunities. Getting those zingers, those one-liners in. But I'm sure there's still gonna be fireworks anyways. I'm expecting a pretty good show. I did figure that I should give a mention to Julian Assange, who just got a plea deal a couple days ago and is out of prison. Interestingly, the video of him getting on the plane, and there's some pictures and video of him in the plane, I was expecting him to be much more emaciated and looking a lot worse than he actually did. He looked better than I expected, which, based on some of the stories that I've heard, I find that a little hard to believe. I wonder what doesn't square here. Is it he wasn't actually as bad as he looked? He's actually a lot worse than he looks, or I don't know, body double. There's just a bunch of different things that something doesn't square. But anyways, I wanted to highlight this here. So here's a what is it? The like slap fighting retards. You got the regime libertarian and the not regime libertarian who are fighting each other. And I understand that I understand what I'm inflicting on you guys. But Liz Wolfe says, what happened to the Libertarian Party? I can't even tell you how many times libertarian adjacent people, generally pragmatists who are into the ideas but don't really pay much attention to the LP, have asked me this question. So I decided to report it out. How the Libertarian Party lost its way. 2 years post-takeover, some longtime activists and donors claim the Mises Caucus has driven the party into the ground. Now, Angela McCardle says, we played a small part in freeing Julian Assange, and Liz's response is to write a hit piece on us. Is she part of Operation Mockingbird or just a stool pigeon for the deep state? Pretty good zinger. Now, I think Angela is exactly right here, both from some of the stuff that I know behind the scenes and then just kind of what's publicly evident. I think she's exactly right. You guys know that I've been pretty hard on them, but I got to give it to them when they do something good. And in this case, I think they definitely have done something good. Liz says, LOL, okay, you freed Assange. You're going to take credit for that? The LP was brokering this deal with the DOJ? Give me a break. I can understand her skepticism. Maybe she doesn't know some of what's going on behind the scenes. Dave Smith responded, I think this is exactly right. He says, this doesn't seem like too much of a stretch. Angela has clearly been pushing Trump to commit to pardoning Assange. And obviously, she's got a connection to him. She got him to come to the convention. So obviously, we know that there is a connection between the LP leadership and the Trump campaign. And there's some sort of mutual fondness there, or a desire to work together. Trump said he would make a major announcement on it soon. The administration, not wanting to give Trump a political win, worked out a plea deal where he goes free. Small part is a reasonable take. And this guy here says, this is what she sent from her locals. By now, I'm sure you've heard the good news that Julian Assange is free. Julian has taken a plea deal that includes time served, which means he won't have to spend any more time in prison. After a court hearing in the USA, he can go back home to his wife and 2 young children. Now, taking a plea deal, and from what I heard, they had to charter a private plane to get him back there, and it cost $500 grand that they had to basically take out a loan for or something. There's some other funny business going on there, and I don't know what. I can't weigh in on it because I'd just be talking out of my ass. Stella Assange and Gabriel Shipton have worked on this for many years with Julian's legal team. So has Julian's father. Thomas Massey has wielded incredible influence lately with his House resolution and with the support of Marjorie Taylor Greene and the Squad. Australia's Prime Minister also applied pressure, as did several other Australian government officials. I'm proud to say the Libertarian Party played a small but important role too. While the Biden admin is not communicating with us directly like the Trump team is, they are watching us closely and trying to outmaneuver Trump's overtures to us. They have reached out to people I know and inquired about Ross, for example. Their move to free Assange was partly motivated by their desire to win the election and our support. That's huge news for our party and our movement. Major thanks to Tim Pool, who asked Trump about freeing Julian Assange at our national convention. That was also a significant catalyst to this event. We have the power to free political prisoners and save people's lives. I will continue to lean fully into that and to maximize its potential. Thank you for supporting the work that I do and for continuing to support the Libertarian Party. We're in a great place right now. I think in this particular instance, what Angela's talking about, I think she's exactly correct. I think that they did play an important role in this by getting the attention of RFK and of Trump, getting him out there. And I do think that the insight she's giving is valid based on what I'm aware of behind the scenes. The This is an example of the Biden administration trying to preemptively snatch a win from Trump. Now, what would this tell you if this is the case? If the Biden administration, who presumably has everything all sealed up and ready to go, everything's already settled, the election is fortified, the outcome is assured, they seem to be doing an awful lot of preparation for an eventuality where that's not the case. They're out here trying to take wins away from Trump preemptively. I think what it also tells you is what parts of the coalition are exercising influence right now and what parts aren't. Do you think that the Hillary Clinton wing of the Democrat Party would be freeing Julian Assange? Do you think there's any possible way in hell that she's on board with something like this or any of her proxies? We've talked about how the regime is a coalition. It's a coalition of a bunch of different interests who all see utility in pooling their interests together, coming up with some sort of compromise, and using that to extract what wins they can get and trying to stack them on top of each other. And they're constantly herding these cats together. Well, what's been happening over the last more really 6 months, but it was bubbling up before then, is significant members of the regime coalition are beginning to exercise influence, pulling them away from other members of the regime coalition. And these lines are starting to become clearer and clearer. NATO, the World Economic Forum, the EU, these sorts of globalist institutions, the UN, are on one side aligned with what might be known as Blue America. On the other side, you have growing sectors of Silicon Valley. You have private defense contractors. You have American commercial and investment banks and the Fed. These are the lines are becoming pretty clear. And the trajectory seems to be that the latter are the ones who are accumulating power and the former are bleeding it. So I just wanted to highlight this because I think this is another data point indicating the current state of things. It's not guaranteeing any sort of outcome, but we can't always necessarily look at the chess pieces on the board directly. We kind of have to look at them through proxies, and I think this is a pretty clear proxy. Okay. We are going to get to the Shroud of Turin thing here next, and then I've got a funny headline and something about private cities and a city building boom. But before we do the Shroud of Turin, I want to play this one clip here. Let me speed it up. We'll have to. I'm sorry, I know some of you don't like the fast speed, but I got to get done here hopefully before noon. So let's go with this clip. So Tucker, good friend of the show, Tucker, is down in Australia, and he had a kerfuffle with some of their journalists there. And this is we've talked about the spirit of the vengeful son and the people who are sort of coming online to recognizing the current state of things, discovering what time it is, so to speak. You're beginning to see this consistent, you know what? Fuck you. Just giving the middle finger to people. This is a fantastic example of that. And nobody's better at doing this in a really relatable, incisive, effective way than Tucker. Rip says, smash the like. Yes, please. Please do hit the like button. We got 40 viewers live on YouTube right now and 17 likes. Please give us our like currency. You can also send a super chat. You can become a channel member. $5 a month. You can be one of the king pilled. Column Rosh in the chat. Whoops. Chat jumped down on me. Hold on. Where did it go? I got to find it over here. Colin Rosh is here. He says, what's up, y'all? Been crazy busy. Third kid on the way. Hell yeah, brother. That's right. We're going to talk about something having to do with babies here in just a minute. Good to see you, buddy. Glad to hear it. Okay, let's play this.
So much for your address today. So you talked a little bit about immigration. In the past, you've talked about how white Australians, Americans, Europeans are being replaced by non-white immigrants in what is often referred to as the Great Replacement Theory. This is the same.
Have I said that whites are being replaced?
Well,
I don't think I said that.
Well, it's been mentioned on your show 4,000 times. And
Really, when did I say that?
On your show.
I said whites are being replaced?
You have said that before.
Really?
Yeah.
I would challenge you to cite that, because I'm pretty sure I haven't said that. I said
mean,
native-born Americans are being replaced, including blacks.
Native-born Americans.
Native-born Americans.
And
Americans who, like black Americans, have been African Americans, have been in the United States for, in many cases, their families over 400 years. And their concerns are every bit as real and valid and alive to me as the concerns of white people whose families have been there 400 years. So I've never said that whites are being replaced. Not one time. And you can't cite it.
Untrue.
So we just met, but when our relationship starts with a lie, it makes it tough to be friends. So
well,
let's pull that back. I'm happy to explain what I do think.
So.
Well, you actually can't say it because I didn't say it, and I don't believe it. And I'm telling you that to your face, so why don't you just accept me at face value? My concern is that the people who are born in the country are the main responsibility of its leaders. And as noted earlier, when those leaders shift their concern from the people whose responsibility it is to take care of to people around the world, put their priorities above that of their own citizens, that's immoral. And they are being replaced in my country, people who were born in the United States. And the birth rate tells the whole story. They're not at replacement rate. And so the U.S. population is growing because we're importing people from other countries. And my view is that happy people have children. And a functioning economy allows them to do that. And we don't have that. And so you need to fix the economy and fix the culture and make it so that people who want to have kids can. You don't just go for the quick sugar fix of importing new people. Like, that's my position. And if you think that's racist, that's your problem.
I never called you a racist.
But of course you are suggesting, and I must say one of the reasons people don't like people like you in the media is that you never say exactly what you mean. Your slurs are all by implication, and you're about to tell me the great replacement theory is racist or anti-Semitic, whatever. I've said what I've said to you right now 100 times in public. I hope to, if I live long enough, say it 100 more times. I think it's completely honest and real, not racist or scary. It's factually true. It's not a theory, it's a fact. And the whole point of your question was to be like, you're a scary racist.
Well, I haven't.
And my response is, no, I'm not. Okay, well, how about no more lying in your questions, and then I'll answer it.
Okay, well, this is the same theory, or as you say, idea, that has inspired the New York Buffalo shooting where 11 black Americans were killed.
You know what I mean?
Killed. Like, it's also inspired.
It's not. First of all,
it's inspired one of the worst Australian guys
of all time. How do they get people this stupid in the media? I guess it doesn't pay well. Look, I'm sorry. I've lived among people like you for too long, and I don't mean to call you stupid. Maybe you're just pretending to be, but I'm totally against violence. I'm totally against the war in Ukraine, for example, which doubtless you support. And like all dutiful liberals, support more carnage. I don't. I hate mass shootings, actually. Nothing I said, what does it mean to inspire something? My views are not bigoted against any group. They're honest. They're factual. That's not hate. That's reality. And my views derive from my deep concern for Americans, actually. Americans aren't having kids because they can't afford to. And nobody in charge cares. And so that's my position. That doesn't inspire mass shootings. How dare you try to tie me to some lunatic who murdered people? How dare you, actually? And in fact, I mean, do you know what I mean? I'd be like, Hitler wore those shoes. A lot of people are saying that you're like Hitler. Can you explain those shoes? Hitler wore exactly the same shoes. And you're like, I got nothing to do with Hitler. That's how I feel about your absurd, disingenuous question.
Right, so therefore you support gun control?
What? I thought you
don't
get dumber, but it did. No, I don't support disarming law-abiding people so they can't defend themselves, so the government has a monopoly on violence. I don't think so. First of all, in my country, that's illegal, as you know. But moreover, it should be illegal in every country. A sovereign person has the right to defend himself and his family, period. And that said, I'm totally opposed to harming anyone. Anyone. Have you been calling? Are you concerned about the war in Ukraine? And the countless innocents being murdered there every single day? I doubt you are. Probably Putin bad. I am. I'm a Christian. I hate violence. I hate mass shootings. I have guns at home, and often on my person, I'm in the United States, I'm proud to say, because I want to defend myself and those I love against violence. That's the point. I'm not perpetrating crimes. I'm not shooting strangers. I'm defending what I love. And if you're against that, I guess I would ask why. Why would you be against that?
Well, so you don't think you harbor any kind of responsibility for these hate crimes?
I'm sorry. I'm trying to be charitable. I was like, maybe you're just pretending to be dumb. Now I don't think it's an act.
Tucker, thank you for taking those questions. I'm sure you enjoyed
Actually, I loved it. I just feel sorry. I mean, because I got here and the country's so unbelievably beautiful and the people are so cheerful and funny and cool and smart. I'm like, your media's got to be better than ours. It can't just be a bunch of castrated robots reading questions from the boss. And then it turns out it's exactly the same, maybe even a tiny bit dumber.
Tucker is like, he's like a month away from not saying a tiny bit dumber, saying a tiny bit gayer. Parker says Tucker is such a baller. Oh, yeah. That just, I mean, I described Tucker before as I've been deep diving his podcast and his different interviews and stuff that he's done and came to the conclusion that he's one of the most authentic people in media. You can't fake that type of authenticity. If you can't pick up on his authenticity, that's a you thing. That's a spiritual immaturity thing. You got to flex those muscles a little bit better. The level of authenticity that he has reveals that he's actually got this kind of naive view of the world. He spent his whole life very much being an ardent believer in the Boomer Truth regime. And for all of the ostensibly ideal good reasons that the Boomer Truth regime has sold itself. Now, all those selling points are not actual tenets of the regime. They're the selling points, but they're like insidious little bugs to weed in or to seed in the actual intent. It's much more malevolent or and sometimes it's just like emergently malevolent. Conspiracy of interest, as Tucker said. But he actually believes in those good things. Those good things that are good to believe in. He still believes in the heart and soul of everything that's good about America, the founding of America, America as an entity. America as an entity is still coming online. We haven't really learned what America actually is. It's gone through its different stages, and there's little bits and pieces of the identity here and there, and there's very clearly an American identity, but it's being solidified in real time. And I think someone like Tucker represents the heart and soul of the beauty that is and will be the American identity. I think his spirit is exactly it. You know, WASP aristocracy, deeply aware of history, historical trends and cycles, the state of things now. Very much believes in, like he said, the sovereign individual, which obviously on philosophical, political terms, I would quibble with that, but I know what he's getting at. He's talking about the Christian notion of the individual who has dignity and ought to be treated with respect no matter their background. America is not... Do I really want to step in this? Yeah, I'm going to step in it. The Tucker clip from Australia he posted recently, that was the one I just played. Was there another one, Burner? This is the one I saw, but was there another one? What was I going to say? Oh, so like he said, I've talked about Americans, native-born Americans being replaced. He's also, I would say to her credit, he's talked about the hostility toward white people. She's conflating those things, but he's absolutely talked about how there is a very real and simmering and beginning to boil kind of hostility toward white people generally that exists globally. But I think that this distinction that he makes is very good. The distinction between a native-born American and a white person. These things are not one-to-one. They will never be one-to-one. And trying to make them one-to-one is only going to end in crisis, destruction, warfare. You're not going to get a civilization out of that. You can have your own little sectors. And I think that hostility toward that is stupid and gay. But trying to make the entire continent white, whatever that actually is, because like as soon as you make the entire continent white, then it's just going to devolve into a fight over what actually is white. Is Italian white? Is Swedish white? Is Lebanese white? Is Brazilian white? You might say European. Okay, well, there's precisely right now, there's a big war over what European even is. The EU is trying to bring all these different states in and say, this is European, and this is European, and these are all European. And trying to go to war with something like that is just fighting phantoms. Josh says there was a longer 20-minute clip posted by Tucker where he responds to 3 journalists. Ooh, okay. If one of you can send that to me, then I'm going to watch that. Maybe there'll be some other stuff that I can commentate on. I know that by saying that, I'm going to piss off the thinking caps, but so be it. I'm tired of stepping in their shit. Okay. So, talking about babies. Did you know that at the moment of conception, a poof of light engulfs the egg? This is John 1:9. That was the true light which lighteth every man that cometh into the world. Check out this video.
So this is the documented moment of conception. And the sperm enters the egg, and there's this poof of light that comes off of it. Scientists are studying this, and they're looking at it, and they're like, okay, well, it looks like it's a release of zinc, a burst of zinc that comes off the egg, and it creates this appearance. But any way you slice it, they can't explain away that light happens when life happens. Isn't that amazing? Light happens when life happens.
Okay, so take that, hold that in your head for a moment, and then listen to this. I'm sorry to those of you who know who Dr. Taylor Marshall is. I'm going to subject you to him briefly. Just brace yourself. It won't last for long. This is the best clip I could find, most concise, that touched on all the points I wanted it to touch on.
We have a shroud by a man that was tortured the way Jesus was pierced through his side, had coins on his eyes that were minted by Pontius Pilate, had pollen grains that were from Jerusalem, matched bloodstains on the Sudarium of Oviedo that is attributed to Jesus, and had a burst of ultraviolet radiation that caused a 3D image of this crucified body. It's got to be Jesus.
Allegedly forged, what do they say, 1300s? How does a guy in the 1300s do this?
He gets technology from 2050 and transports it back.
Drives it over to Jerusalem, then goes up to Edessa, and then goes over to Constantinople and gets all the flora pollen. I mean, there's just a lot of things here that point to authenticity.
Science and faith do not contradict. And a lot of people have said that the Shroud is the perfect example of science and faith uniting. Hopefully that'll help some science-minded Catholics evangelize. And this is a big thing to share, especially with, I mean, everyone's going to college, right?
Your mom goes to college.
Okay. So that was what I thought of when I saw this little clip today about the sperm and the egg. I'd seen this before, and I was scrolling through looking for content for the show, and I saw that, and that's what it reminded me of, because I'd heard this before. I listened to a long podcast about the Shroud of Turin, and they talked about the way that the image is imprinted on the shroud is a product of something like an explosion greater than 2,000 degrees or something along those lines. It's like a burst of ultraviolet radiation that exploded outward and imprinted an image on the shroud itself. So the way they discovered the shroud, here I've got another. I grew up Protestant, very much not believing in such things. I had long been conditioned to believe that the shroud was fake, that there's no authenticity, yada, yada, yada. And then becoming Orthodox and encountering relics and understanding the reason why the church has always maintained relics, what it actually says about the matter that our bodies interact with, the way that we have a spirit that is associated with matter in a particular place, and it does something to that matter. That matter gets cycled through, like our cells replace themselves over and over again. But there's something about the way that matter comes into being and its relationship to the spirit and what that does to that matter that makes the world so much more real. It's not the so-called matter is not this dead inert substance. It actually is alive, in a sense. We don't really have the language for this, but there's a spirit to it that animates it. So this opened my mind back up to the shroud, and I went digging into it, watched a couple of videos and stuff on it, detailing all the evidence, and it became very evident. Like, it's very, very obvious. It's abundantly clear that the shroud is authentic. So it says, the image on the Shroud of Turin continues to perplex the world. With no other artifact like it, there is no definitive explanation of how this anatomically perfect image came into existence. There are 5 puzzling enigmas regarding the image on the shroud. Please note this list of enigmas is not exhaustive, but provides a sample. 1. The image is only on the uppermost surface of the fibrils, thus it could not have been formed by chemicals. Number 2. The image shows the whole body, however, not all areas of the cloth came into contact with the whole body. The image was not produced by vapors from chemicals or vapors from the corpse itself. There is a double image on both the front of the cloth and on the back, but no image in the middle of the cloth, implying that the cloth collapsed into a mechanically transparent body. You can see inside the body, like an X-ray. The 1978 Stirp investigation and the later research of John Jackson and Paolo Di Lazzaro provide a plausible explanation for the first 3 enigmas, but the last 2 still have no physical explanation. Thus, most conclude that these 2 effects belong to the realm of miracles. So, image formation in Enigmas 1, 2, and 3 explained. How did the image form on the shroud? Quoting from Father Robert Spitzer. According to Jackson, an intense burst of vacuum ultraviolet radiation produced a discoloration on the uppermost surface of the shroud's fibrils without scorching it, which gave rise to a perfect 3-dimensional negative image of both the frontal and dorsal parts of the body wrapped in it. We currently do not know of any natural cause for a human corpse producing ultraviolet radiation like this. Thus, one must, like Jackson, come to a conclusion through a process of disproving other possible hypotheses, i.e. the above enigmas 1 to 3. So enigma 1, the image is only on the uppermost surface of the fibrils. If the image formation came about through chemicals, then it would not explain how the image only appears on the uppermost surface of the fibrils. By their makeup, chemicals penetrate beyond the surface of the fabric. Enigma 2, the image shows the whole body. Chemicals cannot explain how a perfect three-dimensional image became evenly distributed on the cloth, especially on parts that did not come in contact with the corpse. Thus, something other than chemicals must be the cause of the image on the shroud. Enigma 3, the image was not produced by vapors. Vapors from chemicals or from the corpse itself do not explain how the image is present on parts of the body where the cloth clearly did not touch the body, i.e. areas on either side of Christ's projected nose. More on the image and radiation. Jackson deduced that vacuum UV radiation is the only possible explanation for the image's formation. First, in order to turn linen into a perfectly photographically sensitive material, you need light radiation. However, it must be without any accompanying heat radiation. The formation of the shroud's image would take several billion watts of light radiation, which exceeds the maximum output of any source of UV radiation known today. If the accompanying heat energy had been present, the cloth would have been vaporized in less than 140 billionth of a second. Jackson's theory was validated in 2010 by Pauli Di Lazzaro and his team, who concluded, quote, in particular, vacuum ultraviolet photons account for the very thin coloration depth, the hue of color, and the presence of image in linen parts not in contact with the body. Obviously, it does not mean the image was produced by a laser. Rather, the laser is a powerful tool to test and obtain the light parameters suitable for a shroud-like coloration. The realm of miracles, Enigmas 4 and 5 explained. Enigmas 4 and 5 may fall into the realm of miracles. Enigma 4, the double image. The startling discovery of an image on both the front and back of the cloth implies the cloth collapsed into and through the body. There is no scientific explanation of how this could have happened unless the body became mechanically transparent, causing the cloth to collapse into it. If the cloth did collapse into the body, then the ultraviolet light would have completely surrounded the body. This would produce a double image on both the front and the back of the cloth, but nothing on the fibers in the middle. And Enigma 5, you can see inside the body like an X-ray. The last enigma concerns the bones of the hand, which appear visible as if they were encased in flesh. The process that formed the image recorded both the inside of the hand, the skeleton, and the outside of the hand, the flesh surrounding the skeleton, at the same time. This again implies that somehow the body covered with the shroud became mechanically transparent, and that the cloth collapsed into and through this body. If it had not done so, the image would only be of the outside of the body. Father Spitzer concludes, quote, currently, the known laws of physics cannot explain how a decomposing body can emit an intense burst of vacuum ultraviolet radiation. Furthermore, they cannot explain how such a body could become mechanically transparent and emit light from every three-dimensional point within it. Close quote. While it cannot be scientifically proved, it is reasonable to infer that there is some transphysical cause for the emission of this kind of radiation. After all, Jesus was not just raised from the dead. His body changed from a physical one to a glorified transphysical one. Remember, he was able to pass through solid doors, but he was not a ghost. The apostles touched him, and he ate with them. If you'd like to learn more about the Shroud of Turin, there's 5 other articles here. And then you could search for, there's tons and tons of videos that go into deep depth on this that you can find just on YouTube. You're going to get all the disprovers as well. But all of the disprovers get comprehensively disproven all the time themselves. So here's the link to the article I was just reading. I just dropped it in the live chat. There's a face cloth that used to be kept with it, I think. Yes, there's also the head wrap or face cloth with it. And I was watching something. I wasn't able to completely finish it, but it was showing the overlap and the connection that these two can be dated to the same place. They have the same blood type on them. Jesus' blood type was AB negative. So they the head wrap, they've been able to look at the way the folds are made on it and how they connect to each other and everything, and so it's very obviously connected. Now, something separate and related to this is this here. Let's see, I already played that. Let me close that. So the Christ Pantocrator icon is very interesting. It's I believe it's the oldest known. Someone, if Cooper's in the chat, he can correct me. I believe it's the oldest known icon of Christ. It's one of the oldest, at least. The mid-6th century Christ Pantocrator icon of Sinai with the Shroud of Turin. So if you take the Shroud of Turin and you see the imprint that's on it, and this imprint is like a photo negative of it. They didn't even see it until they were doing like light analysis on it, and it's basically a photo negative imprinted in it. And you can see that overlapped with, here's the side by side of the icon, and then the top and bottom of the icon. The correspondence is very, very close. So this sort of thing is just, it's a profound support to the Christian faith. I think it's beautiful that we have a history of iconography, the symbolism of iconography, what iconography actually indicates, the way it helps us. It's like a point. Having the doctrine of iconography is like a point that fixes the nature of the Trinity and our relationship to God, what it means to be made in the image of God. I think this is beautiful. Old Head Norwood Groiper 2016 says AB negative is the rarest blood type. Yes, that's true. It's very interesting. I was learning some very interesting stuff about blood recently. Maybe I'll share some of it in the future. But blood is much more than just this like inert plasma liquid thing that flows through your body. It's much there's a much deeper reality to it. It corresponds to the heart being more than just a pump. Okay, let me see some of these comments you guys have put in here. Let's see. Oh yeah, Taylor Brown says, feels like the Shroud of Turin could be something you go down an hours-long rabbit hole on, contemplating the mystery of our Lord's passion. Absolutely. And I think I think this is great. We have our Western minds that are like, we need proof, we need evidence, we need like material demonstrations of these sorts of things. And in God's grace, he provides those to us. We do get these material demonstrations that are verifiable. And I think that there's nothing wrong with the process of trying to scientifically verify these sorts of things. That pursuit. You can't lose sight of the fact that if something isn't per se scientifically verifiable, that doesn't mean that it's not real. Because science is a discipline, an empirical discipline for evaluating the material physical world. You can't necessarily expect the non-physical, non-material world to correspond to the process of science. It has its domain, and that domain should be properly ordered. And it becomes as we study nature, as we use science to study the material physical world, because this world is a world created by the Creator for the creators that he created, then when we study the material physical world with the proper paradigm, then we are studying the nature and character of God. He's revealed in all of creation to us, which is beautiful. Life is in the blood is something I've always thought meant more than I understand. Yes, right. Biblical Anarchy says, at some point it takes more faith to believe in a series collection of coincidences than it does to just follow the evidence for Christianity. Right. Cooper says, not the oldest, but one of the oldest that still exists after iconoclasm. Okay, yeah. Biblical Anarchy says, atheists say, where's the evidence? God does provide it, but you have to have eyes to see and ears to hear. Right. If your evidence evaluating process precludes certain types of evidence, then yeah, you're not going to accept those things as evidence. But that's a problem with your presuppositions. That's not a problem with the evidence itself. All right. Got a couple more stories here that are entertaining, informative. This one's great. Washington Post. We've been accidentally cooling the planet, and it's about to stop. Hold on, what? Cooling the planet? Round and round we go. Humans' fossil fuel burning has cooled the planet while warming it, presenting problems for the future. Yes, this is an actual Washington Post headline. This is not edited. I'm on the Washington Post website. Humans' fossil fuel burning has cooled the planet while warming it. Does the article address that? No. It never explains how it cools it while warming it. It explains how it cools it and explains how it warms it, but it doesn't explain how the two go together. It's widely accepted that humans have been heating up the planet for over a century by burning coal, oil, and gas. Widely accepted. Interesting terminology. It's widely accepted. Earth has already warmed by almost 1.2 degrees Celsius, 2.2 degrees Fahrenheit, since pre-industrial times, and the planet is poised to race past the hoped-for limit of 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming. But fewer people know that burning fossil fuels doesn't just cause global warming, it also causes global cooling. It is one of the great ironies of climate change that air pollution, which has cooled tens of millions, has also curbed some of the worst effects of a warming planet. So if it's warming it and it's cooling it at the same time, then that kind of just means it is. Like, is the question like, is it warming it faster than it's cooling it? Or is it cooling it faster than it's warming it? There's like an equilibrium here. Maybe we could try to find this equilibrium. No. We just need to like fossil fuels. There's no like actual explanation or proposition given here. It's just, it cools it and it warms it. And it warms it while it's cooling it. Tobias says, sounds like a woman wrote it. I'm too hot, but also too cold. Yeah, right. And thus we discover the war over the thermostat. Vorpal Anvil says, by pure coincidence, it causes whatever we need to justify doing what we want. Right. Tiny particles from the combustion of coal, oil, and gas can reflect sunlight and spur the formation of clouds, shading the planet from the sun's rays. Since the 1980s, those particles have offset between 40 and 80% of the warming caused by greenhouse gases. I'm old enough to remember when people tried to make this case, and they were called climate deniers or whatever. This was like 10 years ago or less. People were like, yeah, the whole global warming thing was in full steam. And you had the people saying, well, hold on a second. If we're producing all this particulate matter, then it actually would have a cooling effect. Which, incidentally, I know this is going to trigger some of you, but incidentally, this makes me, something here just doesn't seem right. Just intuitively, something doesn't seem right. We've got this absolutely massive, gigantic ball of energy that completely dwarfs the Earth. The Earth is a tiny little speck compared to it. But you get a little bit of water vapor and a little bit of dust in the atmosphere, and it drastically affects the temperature. Something about that just intuitively doesn't seem right. I'm sure there's an explanation. Someone can reply with actually it's like this and this and this. But something just, it's so strange how this entire system of physics and climate science and all these adjacent disciplines are just made up of all these different massive, weird, counterintuitive things. So many fantastic little coincidences all aligned. I don't know. I'm not claiming that I have an answer, but I'd be interested to see some kind of way of addressing this, and I found some of them. This is what's interesting about them to me, that people will actually take these on and address them and say, hey, maybe the world wasn't created, the universe wasn't created as a big giant trick, where it makes you think one thing, but it's actually the other thing. It's just a whole bunch of contradictions. You may think the world is like this, but no, it's actually the exact opposite. God, that big joker. And it's no coincidence as well that the whole premise of venturing down into this little cul-de-sac of science, by their own admission, was men saying, we cannot accept the premise that humanity is at the center of the universe. This would make humanity special. We cannot accept that. So because taking these assumptions would require that we accept the premise that humanity is special in some way, we are going to reject that entire set of premises, reject all of the evidence associated with them, and head down this way. Where now we've got a bunch of disparate domains that all contradict each other, all disprove one another, but we just hold them all together at once, simultaneously. You just swap out a tool for, if it's really local, use one tool. If it's somewhat distant, remote, use another tool. If it's super distant, remote, use a different tool. All of these things disprove one another. The greatest scientific pursuit right now is a unified theory that unifies everything. We don't have that yet, but trust us, we're on the right track. I've seen what your science produces. Forgive me if I don't simply trust you. Anywho, you can go look up this article if you want. I scrolled through it hoping to, like, I read the whole thing earlier, hoping to find something that actually, I don't know, was anything other than just a woman writing about something she doesn't understand. And no, I didn't find anything. Slosher says, even people like Dave Smith are now saying, after COVID, trust the science just doesn't cut it anymore. Yes. I want to see actual science come back. I want to see science that isn't paused. Science that isn't at its root grounded in the the pronouncements of a demonstrable fraud who also happened to be Jewish, which is very ironic about all of this. Clouds, Jonathan says, clouds also both heat and cool, and we don't understand why or how, which is why they're discarded in their models conveniently. Have you guys seen, I should see if I can find this. There's people who have been doing experiments with some kind of metal, and there's something called orgone. I haven't gone down this rabbit hole deep enough, but I've seen the videos of people using these. They have like a pipe that they put in the ground, and they put some sort of substance into it, and they've got an explanation, like an electromagnetic explanation for why this is, but they're able to disperse clouds. They're like can project up and like disperse the clouds above them. And I think they could generate them as well. And I've played the videos before for you guys about water and the relationship that water has to human consciousness. And if you understand, human consciousness is the human brain is like a receiver of consciousness. Human DNA is like an antenna. And all of this stuff is implicates water and hydrogen atoms and all this. It's a very fascinating rabbit hole to go down. I'm not smart enough to actually be able to really grasp all of it. I can understand it as I'm watching it, but to fit it all together with everything, I don't have the mind for it. So I just want to put it in front of other people who do and have them go run down that rabbit hole because I think there's a lot to it. Let's see some of your other comments here. Josh Ham says, just tell your woman and girl children to get a sweater while you enjoy the AC set at Chad 69 degrees. Oh, you're cold? Have you tried wearing pants or clothes thicker than a micrometer? Right. Cable says, same way they remove solar activity in their models, of which has the most effect on the climate. Yep. The sun is a very interesting thing. Here's part of my issue with, like, we went to the moon. I have my questions about what the moon even is. I understand this sounds crazy, but I've seen very compelling cases that the moon is not like this ball of rock sitting up there spinning around. I don't know what it is. I haven't seen like a comprehensive proof one way or the other, but I've seen proofs that are just as compelling as the ones that it's a ball of rock. So when you say, like, we went to the moon, I don't even know what that means because I don't know what the moon actually is. And if we've seen the whole trust the science thing and where that leads us, then telling me to just accept these things at face value. Oh, because we've got so much evidence. Yeah, there's lots of evidence for other things as well that have been proven to be frauds. So I can't just accept the evidence just because it's evidence and everybody accepts it. And it's odd that someone who would reflexively reject regime narratives about basically anything else would just take this at face value. That's very odd to me. If the moon is not physical, then how did we land on it? Well, I think, yeah, like that would be one of the questions. And I'm not saying that means we didn't land on it. It could be non-physical and we still landed on it, still went to it. I think those are entirely plausible things. The most plausible, elegant model that I've seen would imply a local sun and moon. And I've seen very compelling explanations for how these things would work, which would actually make it even more plausible that we went there. Like, if anything, the model I might be inclined to accept would be a model that would make it more plausible, because it wouldn't involve going through whatever space is. So I'm not at all opposed to the idea that we went to the moon. I just know that the official moon landing narrative is bullshit. And that the current state of physics has wandered off down a rabbit trail and got themselves chasing their own tails. And that people are now beginning, more and more actual, like, serious, scientifically minded people are beginning to pick up the threads that were dropped 100 years ago. So I'll keep bringing them to you as I encounter them and allow you guys to do with them as you will. Okay. Biblical Anarchy says, I believe we went to the moon, but they're lying about what they found. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised about that at all. Last story of the day. Then I got to go to the airport and pick up the mother-in-law. Looking forward to seeing her. Eastwood's very excited. The Economist. The world is in the midst of a city-building boom. Everyone from Donald Trump to Peter Thiel to Abdel Fattah el-Sisi is getting involved. Africa's tallest building is rising under empty skies. Beneath the iconic tower in northern Egypt sits a city that officials expect to one day house 6.5 million people. For now, though, it's mostly empty, like the desert that came before it. Egypt's new administrative capital is part of a rush of city building. Firms and governments are planning more settlements than at any time in the post-war period, with many already under construction. 91 cities have been announced in the past decade, with 15 in the past year alone. In addition to its new capital in the north, Egypt is building 5 other cities with plans for dozens more. India is considering 8 urban hubs. Outside Baghdad, Iraq, workers have just broken ground on the first of 5 settlements. And it's not just emerging economies that are building. Investors in America have spent years secretly buying land for a new city in California. To the east, the deserts of Arizona and Nevada have lured Bill Gates and Mark Lohr, 2 billionaires, each with plans for their own metropolis. Even Donald Trump, in his bid for re-election, has proposed 10 freedom cities. In their early stages, many of these projects will attract derision. History suggests that plenty will fail. But the number and diversity of settlements under construction suggests some will triumph. That is a great thing. Edward Glaser of Harvard University has lauded cities as mankind's greatest invention. I might quibble with that. I think both are true. I think it is a great invention, and it's also a great curse. He notes that agglomerations of money and talent make societies richer, smarter, and greener. Since companies move closer to their customers and people closer to their jobs, growing cities beget economic growth. Economists think that doubling a city's population provides a boost to productivity of 2 to 5%. Given both the pressing need for new urban areas and the constraints on physical growth in existing ones, starting afresh is sometimes a shrewd decision. In much of the poor world, land disputes, shantytowns, and poor infrastructure choke development. The problem will worsen as urban areas swell by an extra 2.5 billion inhabitants by 2050, according to projections by the United Nations, with the new urbanites appearing in regions where cities are already under extreme stress. Builders hope that new metropolises will help relieve the pressure. In Nairobi, near where Stephen Jennings, a former private equity boss, ding, 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 is building a new city called Tatu, private transport commutes run to over an hour for most jobs. Construction is progressing nicely in Kenya's new settlement, where 5,000 residents already live and work in a gated village. Mr. Jennings is building 7 other cities across 5 countries in the region. Now, before I continue with this, what's very interesting to me about this is, so obviously read this with the appropriate filters. What's very interesting to me is on the broad scale, the meta scale, we've got massive financial interests all across the world investing and building up lots and lots of infrastructure, building cities from the ground up. This means they're anticipating that these cities are going to be populated. There's going to be a use. There's going to be an application for them. They're building for something. What is that something? Could they just be diluted? And these are just a whole bunch of, this is just a massive swath of terrible investments? I find that hard to believe. It's kind of like the people with the climate change narrative where they say, oh, in 10 years, Miami's going to be underwater or whatever. And yet you find all of these people own waterfront property in Miami. And banks are giving out loans. And insurance companies are insuring properties in these places. So you can see the actual, when people put their money where their mouth is, you can see what their actual priorities are and what you could sort of triangulate what they expect the future to be. I was listening to Greg Reese recently over at InfoWars. He's been living in Moscow for a while, and he said that in Russia, it's common knowledge that there's a pole shift coming, and that this pole shift is going to cause a realignment of the climate situation. And they're anticipating that Siberia is going to experience a big melting event. The government, as a matter of official policy, is planning and pushing toward people going up and settling those areas. What do they know? The more well-connected people I talk to, the more I find that this pole shift thing is not something that's restricted to just the wackos on the internet, as one might have you believe. In fact, like all the serious people are all planning for a pole shift or something like that. Some massive shift in something that causes some sort of cataclysm and a need for repopulating in various different areas and controlling that dynamic as that happens. Are we royal we humans, are we causing this to happen? I don't know. Perhaps. I wouldn't be surprised. Is it something that just happens naturally, organically, separate from human activity? Also wouldn't be surprised about that. Are both true? Potentially, yeah. Either way, it seems like something is happening, and these people are putting their money where their mouth is. Rich world cities have problems of their own. The push for a new town outside San Francisco, a project that goes by the label of California Forever, came from an epic housing shortage on America's West Coast, says Jan Sramek, who leads a group of Silicon Valley investors making it happen. The group, which includes Lorene Powell Jobs, Steve's widow, Reid Hoffman, a co-founder of LinkedIn, and Sir Michael Moritz, a venture capitalist, will put their plans for homes, jobs, and clean energy to a public vote in November. If approved, the city will house up to 400,000 residents on 60,000 acres of what is now farmland. Starting again is a necessary part of the solution to housing shortfalls, says Mr. Sramek, citing the high cost of revamping existing infrastructure. California Forever is among a clutch of planned towns that also aim to improve urban living. The developer is promoting high-density neighborhoods in which residents can reach schools, jobs, and shops without a car. Again, this is another one of those things that is both good and bad. Having walkable cities with great public transportation, minimizing the need for all the cars and the parking and all that sort of thing. Yeah, I think that's great. I think that's a good thing. I also know that the people that are doing it are going to make sure that they do it in the worst possible way imaginable. Today, cities builders have decided that walkability, or what is sometimes called a 15-minute city, is a crucial selling point. Some, like Dolera in India and Bill Gates' Belmont in Arizona, are pitching so-called smart cities, which use sensors to direct residents away from traffic or tell them the most environmentally friendly time for a shower. That doesn't sound Orwellian at all. A few projects double as social experiments. Mr. Lors Telosa, adapted from the Greek word for highest purpose, will do away with private ownership of land, which will instead be held in a communal trust with money generated from leasing it spent on public services. Praxis, another Greek word meaning theory and practice, has raised $19 million and collected a waiting list of potential residents who want to create a more vital future for humanity in the Mediterranean. A private company is building Prospera, a cryptocurrency-accepting libertarian special economic zone in the Honduras, with a mission to maximize human prosperity. Praxis and Prospera are funded in part by Pronamos, a venture capital fund established in 2019 to invest in new cities, which is run by Patrick Friedman, grandson of Milton, and counts Mark Andreessen and Peter Thiel, two billionaire investors, among its supporters. What's interesting is that Joe Lonsdale, so the Pronamos and Patrick Friedman, both are outworkings of the Seasteading Institute, which was once chaired by Joe Lonsdale, who was one of the founders of Palantir, and today heads one of the big venture funds. I can't remember the name of it. But so this whole thing's getting a little close to home with these things. Messrs. Andreessen, Lohr, and Thiel are among a crop of wealthy folk with ideas about how to run cities. But governments also want to experiment. Abundant capital and low interest rates in the 2010s allowed politicians to borrow cheaply. Although rates are now higher, enthusiasm for building remains as countries copy one another. Leaders are keen on using state finances to reshape domestic economies and believe that new cities will help. Houses built on sand. So, like, what all of the people, the most connected people with the most money, what they're all doing is they're building something. They're building for something. They aren't financially or economically pessimistic about the future, or they are pessimistic about the future, but they're building to create to try to take advantage of it. They're not expecting some sort of big collapse. They're preparing for a boom. They're building out infrastructure to contain that boom. And if you think about what this says, what this would mean for the people who are moving into power in the United States, who are seeking to take power back from the World Economic Forum, NATO, UN wing of the coalition, talking about reshoring manufacturing and bringing back, reindustrializing America. These things go together very, very nicely. Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia hopes that several gleaming new metropolises will attract industries that his country lacks, such as financial services, manufacturing, and tourism. Neom, a city made up of a 170-kilometer-long building in the desert, is to be the jewel in the crown. Egypt's new administrative capital is purpose-built for the state's bureaucratic machinery. The government hopes it will reduce congestion in Cairo. The city already includes the Ministry of Defense's imposing octagon, not to be confused with America's Pentagon. Kind of an interesting 8 versus 5 thing there, which spreads over a square kilometer. In Indonesia, workers are cleaning forests for a new capital, Nusantara. For leaders such as Joko Widodo of Indonesia and Abdel Fattah el-Sisi of Egypt, a new capital promises a legacy, lots of jobs, and the ability to keep voters at arm's length. In other countries, rulers have slightly more esoteric ambitions. El Salvador is planning to sell bonds that pay out in Bitcoin in order to fund a crypto city. The Kingdom of Bhutan said in December that it would build a mindfulness city with neighborhoods designed on the repeating geometric patterns of mandala, a Buddhist symbol. The emergence of the China State Construction Engineering Corporation, that's a mouthful, whose workers are building cities in Africa, Southeast Asia, and the Middle East, has lowered the cost of all mega projects, whether fanciful or prosaic. How many of these cities will prosper? Some infrastructure, such as electricity, internet, and roads, must be in place before the first resident arrives, which means that upfront costs can be staggeringly large. Mr. Sramek's company has already sunk $1 billion into buying land for California Forever and will need an additional $1 to $2 billion for just the first stage of construction. Mr. Lohr expects to marshal $25 billion in initial investment for a city in the desert. Prince Mohammed will lean on his kingdom's oil riches to pay for Neom at an annual cost of $319 billion. But enthusiasm and money can run out. Grandiose projects can become white elephants. Work on Egypt's $60 billion capital city has slowed as the country's economy falters. The Chinese developer behind Malaysia's forest city defaulted in 2023 before residents had even moved in. History points to characteristics shared by several projects. State institutions can help anchor cities, as Brasilia in Brazil and Chandigarh in India showed in the 20th century. Although both have had problems, people in Brazil and India are voting with their feet. Brasilia's population is growing at 1.2% a year, more than double the national average. Chandigarh, a state capital, is now India's fourth richest region on a per-person basis. The future is less certain for cities cannot rely on taxpayers to provide jobs and pay the bills, but California Forever and Tatu seem to be based on sensible ideas. As Mr. Jennings puts it, the crucial thing is to focus on getting the boring stuff, such as roads and sewerage, right in order to create a city that is walkable and green, but not especially smart. In addition to being what he calls a dumb city, Mr. Sramek's California Forever shares another advantage with Tatu. Both will piggyback on neighboring economies. We are 5 miles away from cities on both sides, says the California developer. The strength of the demand makes a big difference in how fast you can grow. In Britain, Milton Keynes, a city established in the 1960s, less than an hour by train from London, is thriving. Reston, a planned town outside Washington, D.C., is another success. Sensible city builders are wary of taking on debt. Developers have instead started to sell stakes in projects, demonstrating buy-in for what are long-term ventures. This is a very interesting point, because what you're effectively doing is this is a different model of citizenship. You're becoming an investor in the city ahead of time. The city is being treated as an entity in itself, which is actually an old idea. The East India Company. This is what preceded the rise of republics, were cities, corporate cities established by trade organizations. So this is a kind of what's old is new. You're looking at a 50-year time horizon, says Mr. Jennings, who admits that it sounds insane. He has tapped friends for capital, avoiding private equity backers and their investment horizons, which normally come in at under a decade. California Forever is entirely funded by equity investments. If the 2 new settlements succeed, their investors will be rewarded, but so will many others. That is the glory of cities. So, a question here. Okay, Vorpal Anvil says, pole shift is natural phenomena. Yeah, I do believe it's natural phenomena. The question would be, to what extent can human beings affect that one way or the other? Open question to me. Rip says Costco cities. Yeah, same sort of concept. Parker says, Matt, how do you stay optimistic about technology development and advanced cities while keeping an orthodox frontum and being anti-transhumanist? It's a difficult balance for me. Yeah, it is difficult. Part of the reason why I am optimistic is because you could be optimistic or you could be pessimistic. What's the alternative? To be pessimistic, to shrink back, to hide? I don't think that that's a Christian posture. I think we've gone through many different cycles like this. These cycles are as old as human time, basically. So they're going to continue. There's going to be bad things that come from it, and there's going to be good things that come from it. And the extent of that, the balance between those is our responsibility. It's our focus. So our responsibility is to take the world as it is given to us and then redeem it, which means taking the things that may be manifesting with evil consequences and innovating, discovering, creating opportunities for good consequences. This is how we redeem the world. A lot of these patterns are very, very old, and they signal good things. These are, if you take this from like the really zoomed out meta perspective, imagine 500 years from now, looking back at this time, you would chart these trends and you would say, well, all the big investment money is all going toward building out cities. Cities are associated with trade and prosperity and growth. Of course, on a long horizon, they become associated with degeneracy and degradation, and it continues. But if you looked at this, if we were studying 6,000 years ago and we were looking at some big prince who was engaged in this great building project, building a massive city for his own glory, this would be associated with growth and developing new connections across the planet, migration, all these sorts of things. And there's very many good, positive things that are associated with that. So if you remember the thread that I read yesterday with Kryptos, where he said that part of the liberal mind is just looking for solutions and thinking, oh, we can just engineer the perfect solution. And you have to reject that. But that also means, like, what's the inverse of the solution would be like a permanent problem. In the same sense that we're not going to discover the solution, we're also not going to be stuck with the permanent problem. And our job is to iterate on that and attempt to build solutions, knowing that we're never going to actually succeed with the ultimate solution, which is like the transhumanist direction. There's a little bit of truth in all of these things. Like the transhumanist impulse, they're pulling on something that's real, which is the upward growth and trajectory of mankind, the spiritual awakening of mankind, and recognizing the true capacity and potential for mankind. But they're saying, instead of taking the true path, the royal path to that, we're going to hack it our own way, which is the Tower of Babel story. This is the rise and fall of empires, is the recapitulation of the Tower of Babel. And for the last 2,000 years, all of these institutions have been haunted by the cross, because the cross broke this scapegoat mechanism that formed the breathing action of human societies. You get all the tension that builds up more and more and more until everything gets lumped onto a single scapegoat. That scapegoat gets killed. There's a big euphoric ecstasy, and everyone now is united around this new thing until you progress forward and you develop more and more crises and more problems, and you pick a new scapegoat, and everyone sacrifices that scapegoat, and so on. That model has been broken. This is what it means to live in the end times. We've lived in the end times for 2,000 years. So these cycles are going to continue. Our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren are going to live in a world that is simultaneously vastly more prosperous and enlightened and advanced, while also being far more degenerate and fragile and on the precipice of crisis perpetually. Both of these things are going to be true. Or at least if you operate as if they're going to be true, I think you are the closest to the truth. Anyways, thank you for the $5 super chat, Parker. Appreciate it, man. Let me catch up on some of these chats. Josh says, I test large pneumatic compressors for California. The generators are across the California border due to green BS. The wires run into California, which then power the pneumatics for construction and manufacturing needs. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you showing up here. 55 viewers, 29 likes. Do me a favor and hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you know when we go live. It is Thursday. That means we got one more Astrolabe this week. Be live tomorrow, 10:30 Central Time. I'll have some more stories to share with you guys. Maybe we'll talk about the debate. I won't be able to watch it live tonight because the little man's he's either got soccer or baseball. I can't remember which, and I'll be hanging out with the mother-in-law. But I'll catch you guys again tomorrow with the Astrolabe.